This is Gemara in Kesubos, Daf Tzadi. Hey, an exciting day in Daf, not just because this is the Daf for Erev Sukkos, but because today we'll be concluding the 10th parak of Kesubos and the closing in on this incredible Mesechta as we enter into the final month of Meseches Kesubos. We're holding on the bottom of Tzadi Dalet and Beis, 6 lines in the bottom, in which the Gemara says, Hanu Trei Shtari Dasli Kamei Rav Yosef. There were two shtaros that came in front of Rav Yosef, and we're continuing the discussions of multiple Kesubos, multiple sales, and how we split everything up. So there were two shtaros, there were two documents that were written that someone bought the same piece of land, and they came in front of Rav Yosef, and now Rav Yosef is trying to educate and figure out who is indeed the real buyer. So Chad have they caused of a Chama Shabanisa. One document says that the sale happened on the 5th of Nisan. The other document just says on Nisan without any dates. So Rav Yosef went and gave the one that had a document that said the 5th of Nisan the property. So the other guy jumps on and says, what's going on? And I should lose. Amar Le, Rav Yosef responds to the second guy, At yodach, at yodcha, al tachtaina. Your hand is on the bottom. You do not have as strong a claim as the other guy. Why? Because your document was, we'll call it parif, was not specified what date it was. It just said Nisan. The other guy said the 5th of Nisan. And therefore it's possible that yours was really on the 29th, the last day of Nisan. Amar Lei, so the man's response, fine. V'nichdav li mar. So Rav Yosef, please write for me as we turn over to Sadiyam and Aleph. Tirfa me'ir ve'elach. Fine. The man says, you're telling me that it could be that really the sale happened on the 29th? Fine. So write me a document that I could collect at least from the first of the year. Amar Le, Rav Yosef says, nothing doing. Anytime you're going to go try to collect land, you're going to go try to collect something that says from a purchaser. The purchaser can tell you, why are you coming to me? You could go to a different purchaser because you really could collect because the sale might have happened in the 1st of Nisan. So basically each person could bounce you around, and unfortunately you're not going to be able to collect for anyone. So my takante. So says the Gemara, okay, so tachlis. What can we do for this guy? Explains the Gemara, nichtvar shah lehadadi. Both people, both of them should write a document, a right of authorization of collection to the other. Meaning, the one with the document of the 5th of Nisan collects right now, so he should write over to the other guy, here's a document that says you could collect for the 5th of Nisan. Then that second purchaser could go and utilize it to collect. And if someone wants to claim that he can't use it, he'll say, okay, but at least I can collect from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, from ER, And this is going to ensure that he's not going to be able to be bounced around, because he definitely has the ability to collect for one of these dates. We continue with the Mishnah on Tzadiyam and Aleph. Misha Yanasi Beis Nashim. Someone's again married to 2 wives, Umachar et Sodeyu, and he sold his field. And the first wife wrote to the buyer of his field, I have nothing to do with you. For one day I need to collect my ksuba. I'm not going to come to you. Hashniya, and then what happens? Hashniya, the husband dies, so the second wife goes, and so the second wife goes and says, okay, I get to collect my ksuba now. This field that the husband sold is mishubah to my ksuba. So she goes and she collects from that field. But then what happens? The first wife says, wait, I have a lien on that field. Meaning, it's true that the first wife wrote to the buyer, I don't have anything to do with you, but she still has rights to the field. So v'rishayna min hashniya. So the first wife goes and she collects with the second wife. But then what happens? But then the purchaser says, wait, first wife, you wrote to me that you have nothing to do with this field. I'm taking it back from you. V'chayzeres chalila, and the merry-go-round goes round and round, each one grabbing from the next. So what do? This is a perpetual circle, each one claiming from the next. Says the Gemara, until they make a pshara, until they make a compromise. So too in a regular case of a Baal Chayv, a creditor, or a wife of a husband's a creditor, it's going to be the same case. We have a unique case over here. To a woman, because she removed herself from the purchaser, but she did not remove herself from the second wife, and therefore it's going to go around in circles. So says the Gemara, this whole Mishnah was predicated on the fact that the first wife wrote to the second wife, that the first wife writes to the second wife, I have nothing to do with you. So says the Gemara, the fact that she wrote to the purchaser had nothing to do with you. Of what consequence is that? So it says this friend had nothing to do with this field, had nothing to do with him. My hands are removed from it. Loi Omar Klum. That's meaningless. So says the Gemara, writing, saying, I have nothing to do with you, I have nothing to do with this field, is of no consequence. It does not halachically work to remove his right to that field. So why, in the case of the Mishnah, is it working that this woman loses her right to this field? Explains the Gemara, that she did not just write to him, I have nothing to do with the field. The buyer made an act of acquisition, made a kinyan with the wife, solidifying that she has nothing to do with the field. Ask the Gemara, who cares? What's the difference if they made a kinyan? She could say, I only said that I have nothing to do with this field. I only remove myself from this field. Why? To make my husband happy. Because my husband wanted to sell this field, and I wanted him to feel that I'm not going to come and collect it. So I agreed to the field, but did I really? No. Says the Gemara, Bila Tanan, we now learn in the Mishnah, Lokach min harish ish, v'chazer v'lokach min ha'isha, mechai batel. Did we now learn that if someone buys a piece of property from a husband, and then buys it from the wife, meaning that she later consents, she agrees to the sale of this land to the husband, mechai batel, the sale is void. She seemingly agreed to the sale. No. This is a general concept that at any time that a woman acquiesces and consents to a sale, she's able to later come along and say, it's not true. I didn't really want the sale. I signed on it. I did it just to make my husband happy. So explains the Gemara about 20 lines down. The first word in line is Ruach. Amar Rav Zira, Amar Rav Chisda, Leikash, Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda. So says the Gemara, Rav Zira, name of Rav Chisda, to answer this question, it is indeed a machlokes Rav Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. The Tanya, as we learned in the Rice, Kos of Larisha V'Chas Malai. What happens if a husband sells a field to one person and the wife didn't agree? She didn't sign off on it. L'Sheni V'Chas Malai. Then he sells it to second buyer and the wife agrees. Ibdak Subasa Divrei Rameir. Says Rameir, she has lost her ksuba. She signed away in the field, and it works, and therefore she no longer could collect her ksuba from this field. Rav Yehuda says Rav Yehuda, no, she still has rights to this field. She signed away from it. Says Rav Yehuda, no, she has the ability to say, I only did it to make my husband happy. So seemingly explains the Gemara that this is the machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Now we continue in the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Atem ma lochem olai. Says Rabbi Yehuda that she could say, what claim do you have on me? I only did it to make my husband happy. So seemingly Rabbi Meir holds this is not a good claim, and Rabbi Yehuda holds it is. The Rebbe, so now when Rebbe is writing the Mishnayos, Sas mahachik Rabbi Meir v'sas lahasam Rabbi Yehuda. In our Mishnah, he said this time Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir, that a woman cannot, that if a woman signs off, it's binding. Whereas over there, the second Mishnah that we quoted, that's going like Rabbi Yehuda, that a woman always has the ability to say, I didn't really mean to agree to the sale. So seemingly the stira in the Mishnah is not a contradiction at all, because one is Rabbi Meir, and one is Rabbi Yehuda. Now, there is different girsayis over here, because I'm sure some people are bothered. A little bit of a funny answer, that when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnayis, he was sasam over here, like one opinion, over there another opinion. So there are some who learned that was actually a question. That's how some learn the Gemara. Rashi seemingly is learning that it's not a kasha, but this is stam how Rabbi wrote the Mishnayis. And now Amar Rav Papa, so either Rav Papa is answering up that question or giving a separate answer. Begrusha v'divrei hakol, Rav Papa is learning about a case of a divorced woman, and then therefore if she signed off, certainly she's not going to say, I did it to make my husband happy. She's divorced. And therefore, the sale is certainly good. Rav Ashi Amar, a third teretz or second teretz. Kol Rameir, really it's all going with Rameir, in which holds that the woman does not say Nachzruach Chasisi L'Baili. Va'ad kan lo kam Rameir asam elo v'shnei l'kuchai z'amro lo yisa v'nachzruach avdas l'kam o'yibal chalamevad. When does Rameir hold that there is no claim of Nachas Ruach Hasisi L'Baili, that a woman cannot say, I only did it to make my husband happy? That's specifically when there were two sales. And therefore we say to this woman, I don't get it, lady. If you are claiming you wanted to make your husband happy, so why only did you sign off on the second one? You should have signed off on both. But if it's only one purchaser, then even Rameir will admit that the husband can say, I did it only to make my husband happy. And our Mishnah is a case in which there was another time that the husband tried to write away the field, and the wife did not acquiesce. So the fact that she now acquiesces shows that she's actually willingly signing off on it, and therefore she cannot afterwards say, Nachas Ruach Asisi L'Baili. So two different answers as to how to explain the Mishnah and the Mishnah from Gittin. Tinan, awesome. We learned in a Mishnah over there, we're about 15 lines from the bottom. First one in line is awesome. Says the Mishnah, you cannot go collect on the chas b'shubadim when there's the chas b'nei chayrin. Just a quick reminder. What does this mean? This means if I lend Reuven $100 and I come to Reuven and say, it's time for you to pay me. Reuven says, I'm so sorry. I don't have any field. I don't have any cash. What do? I say, no problem. In the last month of this loan, you went and you sold the field. I can go and collect that field. So that's the chasim mishubadim. But says the Mishnah, you don't have the liberty to collect the chasim mishubadim when there is a potential to take from the chasim v'nei when the person has actual cash as fields on his own. Even if the fields that he has of his own are of a lower quality, still that comes first to go and collect from the nechasim mishubatim. A very obvious rule. So Ibaylahu, but now based off of that rule, the Gemara takes it to the next level and asks, Ishtadov b'nei chayrim. What if at the time of the loan, at the time that he became indebted, he had other fields, but meaning that he did not sell, that were his own, but ishtadov, those other fields became ruined. Now, mahu delitra of mimishab. Are you now allowed to go and say, wait, you have no more fields, I can go and collect from the chazim mishubadim? Or no, from the fact that he has his own field shows that he removes himself from ever getting from the chazim mishubadim, and even though his own field became ruined, there's nothing that could be done. So Tashema proves the Gemara, husband writes a sale to the first buyer and the wife does not sign. Amir says she signed off, she loses ksuba. And if you're going to tell me that in a scenario that the fields get ruined, you could go and collect from the sold properties. So why would Rameir mean that she totally removes herself and loses her ksuba? Maybe one day that field's going to get ruined and she'll want to collect from the other field. So seemingly we see that whenever there's any form of lands that the person has to his own, you do not get from the Chas Mishubadim even if those lands perhaps were subsequently ruined. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak my Ivda Mishin. Says Rav Nachman Yitzchak no Raya. When this Brisa says Ivda she lost, it doesn't mean she lost from the second one, but it's true she could really go and collect from the first. Amar Rava Shtei Shuvas B'Dava. Rava says, what Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak? What type of answer is that? What does it mean? She lost. She lost. Finished. Not she just lost for the second. What do it mean? She lost entirely. And furthermore, as Rava, love min echad nachar nochasav l'shnayim because of al-chayv l'okech shnayni din var mainly yimach nothing to do with you ein loy al-okech rishain klom. You have nothing to do with him at all. Because he can say I left from you a place to collect from. So what do we see? We see that you're entirely removed. You don't have any level to collect from the other field. It says the Gemara, Hasamo de'avsid an nafshei biyodayim. There he brought the loss upon himself with his own hands, and therefore you can't collect in this case. Continues the Gemara on the last line of Sadihei Amid Aleph. Amar le Rav Yimar le Rav Ashi. Says Rav Yimar to Rav Ashi. As we turn over to Sadihei Amid Beis, says Rav Yimar Ashi. Again, sorry, let's just reiterate what we just said. The reason why the case was not a raya was because he removed himself, he brought the loss upon himself, and therefore there's not going to be any raya from that case. So Amalei Rav Yimar le Rav Ashi, as we turn over, let's bring a different raya. Says Rav Yimar le Rav Ashi, I have the breast proof. There are stories that happen every single day that when the field comes ruined, we allow him to go get from the Chasim Mishu Batim. There's a person who borrows money, and what happens? He gives a pardis, he gives a vineyard to his friend Laser Shanim for 10 years in repayment for the loan. So Reuven owes me $1,000, and he says, take my vineyard for 10 years. It's $100 a year, and then you'll get repaid for the loan. And what happens? V'kash l'chamishnin, and lo and behold, after 5 years, what happens? The vineyard no longer is producing. So the person ostensibly, Reuven, still owes me $500. So Asli came to the Rabbanan. They came to the Rabbanan because they tirfa, and the Rabbanan said you're allowed to collect the remainder of the debt. So what do we see? We see that he had property at the time of the loan. That's where I've been collecting for the last 5 years. Now that property became ruined, what do we see? We see now that the property became ruined, you could go and take. Now that the property became ruined, you still could collect from the Chasim Mishubadim. Says the Gemara 4 lines down, says the Gemara, there's no proof in that case because he calls the lost onto himself. Why? What did he do wrong? He should have known that it's normal for a vineyard to age, and in such a scenario, he's going to go and collect from the other fields, and therefore, when that guy went and bought a field from this guy, you look into him, you do a credit check, and you find out that this guy owes someone $1,000, and you find out that he has a vineyard that is paying up that loan, but come on, get real. Everyone knows the vineyard is not going to produce for 10 years. So if you went and you bought a field in such a scenario, you essentially caused the loss onto yourself. What's the halacha? If the field became ruined, if the b'nei chayri and the lands that the creditor has became ruined, you do indeed collect from the chasim bishubadim. Amar Abaye. Says Abaye, new topic, 8 lines down, first one line has been bishavdi. Says Abaye, Nachasi l'chav achreich l'ploini. If someone says to a woman, my property is yours, and after your nifter, the property goes to someone else, and then she goes and she gets married, and then she dies. Her husband is essentially considered a buyer of the property. It's as if she sold the land, and therefore the person who was supposed to get it after her death, again, what was the case? That someone says to this Rachel, Nechasi lecha, my property is yours, and after your nifter it goes to someone else, the achrayich, that someone else does not get anything because it's as if she sold it in the interim. Indeed, by marrying this man, it's as if he bought the field. Says the Gemara Kiman, who does this din accord with? Ki Tanya, like we learned in the following Bryce, the Tanya. Says Rabbi that if someone says this exact case, that here's this land and after you it goes to so and so, and the first person went and he sells it, Mamish sounds like our case. You can, yes, take it away, says Rabbi. Which is not like what we just said, because we just said you cannot take it away. Rashba Goimer, and that's the Tana we're looking for. In the Shini and in this case, there's nothing left over, you don't collect. So the Tana is going to be like Shimon Gamliel. Asks the Gemara, beautiful, Abaya, nice din. We found the source in Rashbag. 12 lines down, the first line is Risha. Does Abaya himself say this din? Abaya seemingly does not like the opinion of Rav Shimon Gamliel, as Abaya says, who is a Rasha Arum, a cunning evildoer, one who gives advice to sell property he received, like Rav Shimon Gamliel. So certainly Abaya is not going to paskin like Rav Shimon Gamliel. Says the Gemara, Mikanamar Tinase Niseis Kamar. No, it's not a kasha. Abaye was discussing a case. He didn't tell her, get married so that you give away the rights to this field. She did get married. Marriage is akin to a sale, and therefore it's as if the husband bought it. It's not that she went and proactively sold it in such a scenario. V'amar Abaye, another case of Abaye, about 15 lines down. First one line is Kamar. Similar case, here's a piece of land, and afterwards it goes to so-and-so, umachra umesa. And in this case, she actually went and sold it and then died. The husband could take it away. And then that other person takes it, the husband. And the purchaser from that guy. And then we leave it all by the lokech. Says the Gemara, why? Because we have this circle, and the circle ends with the purchaser. So as everyone is wondering, ask the Gemara, why is this any different than our Mishnah? That says, our Mishnah had a very similar case. And in our Mishnah, we did not say that anyone has an upper hand. Rather, we said it goes in circles until they make up Shara, compromise. Explains the Gemara 10 lines before the end of the Parah. In the Mishnah, they're all going to lose if they have to make up Shara. Whereas this case, the buyer is the only one that's going to suffer a loss because he paid for this land, and if he doesn't receive it, he gets nothing. That's the reason why he gets the upper hand in this story. So Rafram went and said over this din in front of Rav Ashi, and then he asked, does a buyer really say this, that the achroich, that person could take it from the husband? Like we just saw a moment ago, the first din of a buyer. We said the husband has a din of a lokeach, of a buyer. And the achroich doesn't get anything in light of the baal. So in the first case, a buyer paskin that the husband wins. In the second case, a buyer paskin, you can take it from the husband. What's going on? So Amar Lei, 5 lines into the Pairek. In the previous case, in case number 1 of Abaye, he said it to her when she was unmarried. Therefore, when she gets married, the husband has din of a buyer. Over here, the whole story happened when she was married. And therefore, when he said achroyech, he's saying clearly, when this person gives this piece of land to this woman, he's clearly explaining, I wanted achroyech, and not to go to your husband. We conclude the parak, quoting the end of the Mishnah, V'chein Baal Chayv, the same din is by a Baal Chayv, a woman who's Baal Chayv. Says the Gemara, Tanu learned in a Bryce, V'chein Baal Chayv, V'shnei lekuchas, Chenisha, Eshes Baal Chayv, V'shnei lekuchas are the same case. Hadron aloch nisha yanasui. We should do an incredible chazara of this 10th parak, and we'll pick it up from the 11th parak in the next year, B'siyata D'Ishmaya.